Good morning. Happy Tuesday. How's everybody out there this morning? Coffee with Jen, ready to roll. We'll give everybody a moment to see their notification and join us live before we really get going. But I'm Jenny Gallagher with Joyful Heart Healthcare and Keto Nurses, and we're going to talk butter today. So let everybody join us. Grab your coffee or your tea or your water. Sit back and relax, and we're going to have a little chit chat. So good morning, good morning. I hope everybody's staying cool and dry and comfortable this week. We have some serious heat warnings across the nation today. So lots of salty water this week. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Sharnice. Good morning, good morning. Morning, Debbie. So glad to see everybody joining. We're going to talk about butter here in a little bit. So make sure if you have questions that you type them in the chat. I'll come back and get to them in a little bit. So, good morning, good morning. So, good morning. I have my coffee that has my butter in it. Yes, I drink my butter coffee every morning. My hubby brings it to me in bed. So, yes, I'm spoiled rotten, I must say. But I think today is my granddaughter's birthday. I don't have a calendar in front of me and my phone is being used, but I think today's Emma Kate's birthday. So happy birthday, Emma Kate. Everybody shout out happy birthday. I think it's today. So yeah. Yeah, I think it's today. I think today's the 25th, right? So yeah. Anyway, numbers are climbing, people are joining, so good. We're going to talk about butter today. It's not going to be a real long discussion, but it's going to be an extremely important discussion. So we're going to talk about butter. Butter. I know that you've heard me mention butter. I talk about it in multiple videos. I talked about it probably in the fatigue video, in the inflammation video, in the gut health video. But I thought we might do a discussion just solely on butter because it's so important. And I have patients all the time that in discussion, when I ask them how much butter, they're like, oh, I cook my eggs in it. I put a little bit here or there. And I'm like, I don't think the message is getting through to some people. So I thought I would do a video just about butter. So a couple major things to understand about butter is that real butter is pure fat. Okay? So pure fat. That is really important to understand. There's almost zero anything else there. There's no carbs, almost zero protein. So if you look at a label or if you Google a tablespoon of butter, nutrition information, if you pull up a tablespoon of butter in your nutrition tracking app like MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Chronometer, whatever app you're using, you're going to see usually zero protein, zero carb. However, if you put in like 4 tablespoons, half a stick of butter, like in a recipe or something, you will see sometimes 0.5 grams of protein or 1 gram of protein. Because if you melt butter, I challenge you to do this today or tomorrow. Melt a stick of butter. And what you'll see is you'll have 2 parts of butter. So you'll have a clear yellow film, oily base, and then you'll have sediment at the bottom. I should have melted some to show you. I never think about show and tell until I'm in the middle of my videos. But if you melt a stick of butter, you'll have oily butter fat on the top, and you'll have a little bitty tiny layer of sediment at the bottom. That's your proteins. Okay. There's almost nothing in that. There's a little bit of other ingredients. Some of your vitamins and nutrients will settle out as part of that sediment, but it's almost nothing that's there. So if you think you have a dairy allergy or dairy sensitivity, that little bitty tiny layer of sediment is what you have the allergy or sensitivity to. Okay? That means that if you melt your butter and pour the creamy, buttery, oily stuff off the top, you can use that fat without generally having any kind of reaction. People are not typically allergic to butter fat. It's the protein sediment part that we typically have the reaction to. Okay? So most of the time, people do not have allergic reactions to that cream butter part. Okay? So if you want to test yourself, that's the way you do it. Okay? So you melt the butter, you pour off the cream, the fat, the oily part off top, and then you would taste or test a tiny bit and see if your body has any sort of reactivity to that. And you would do that in tiny amounts over several days. So you would just taste tiny amounts. Once every 3 to 5 days, you would gradually increase that amount to see if you have any reaction and see what happens. That's how you do any elimination diet. You eliminate it from your diet, and then you tiny amount add it back in. Okay? So that's how you would determine that reaction. But as a general rule, people that have allergies to dairy can still use butter. Okay? But that's how. You pour off the cream, the fat, the melted, oily base from the solids, and you just don't use the solids. That's the part that's left in the bottom. Okay? You can run them through a strainer if you want, so that you completely strain all the fat off and keep the solids separated. But I typically just, if I'm going to clarify butter, I just pour it off and then waste what's left in the bottom. So butter has a lot of benefits for our bodies. So butter gets its name, number one, from the ketone body named hydroxybutyrate. Hydroxybutyrate is a ketone body that feeds healthy gut bacteria. So if you think you have an unhealthy gut, if you have overgrowth of candida, you think you have SIBO or leaky gut syndrome, the absolute best thing you can do for your gut is increase your butter intake. Absolutely. Increase your butter intake. It will help kill off candida because it helps nourish and fortify the healthy gut bacteria that are growing in your belly, in your intestinal lining. So feeding your healthy gut helps manage a healthy gut flora in your intestines. So that really helps with bacteria and yeast balance in your gut. But hydroxybutyrate is how butter gets its name. Hear it? Hydroxybutyrate butter. Okay? So that's why many of us in the functional world encourage patients to use real butter, not margarine. Margarine does not get its name from hydroxybutyrate. Okay, let's use the word parts. Let's break it down. Margarine is fake, basically plastic. You don't want to use margarine of any kind. You never want to use any kind of any kind of product that lists ingredients you can't say. That's what it boils down to. So if there's a long list of words and you're like, oh, this has 3 syllables that don't even make sense to me, yeah, those are not real foods, okay? So butter feeds healthy gut bacteria. Another really important benefit to using real butter is fat-soluble vitamins. So if you think back to biology or nutrition, back to high school or college sciences, you might remember that there are fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. And we need both of them to nourish our bodies. Water-soluble vitamins are like your vitamin C, your B vitamins, those kinds of things. So you don't have to have anything to really make them be absorbed and used. You just take them. Our digestive juices are water-based, so they're going to be absorbed no matter what. But fat-soluble vitamins require that we consume fats at the same exact time as we take them. Does anybody know what some of those fat-soluble vitamins are? Does anybody remember? Anybody want to take a guess what some of our fat-soluble vitamins are? Anybody want to type them in our chat? I'll say good morning to a few more people. Beverly has joined us. Good morning. Good morning, Sandy. Good morning, Annie, Sherilyn, Jaylee, Tracy. Good morning, all of y'all. Anybody want to guess what our fat-soluble vitamins are? Mary says D, A, and B. Anybody else got a guess? Good morning, Barb. Tracy says D. Good morning, Ann. Christine says D. A, D, and E. Good morning, Judy. So yes, y'all are correct. Debbie says D and mag. So magnesium is a heavy metal. It's not fat soluble, nor is it water soluble. It is an ion the body uses based on its electricity. So it's a heavy metal. It's not water nor fat soluble, but it is used to help absorb certain nutrients like vitamin D. Vitamins A, E, D, and K are our fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin B12 is somewhat fat-soluble. It is water-soluble in most cases, but some of our fat-soluble processes do use B12. So Mary, you're kind of right there. It's both fat-soluble and water-soluble. But vitamins A, E, D, and K require that we consume fat to absorb and utilize them. Well, guess what? Butter is a fat. So if you are consuming butter when you take your vitamin D, not only are you helping your D be absorbed, but your butter has some A, E, and K in it. So you're helping to get those nutrients as well as helping your body absorb your D. So how much A do you get? So vitamin A, the RDA for vitamin A is about 700 micrograms per day. That's not very much. The body doesn't need a whole bunch of vitamin A. But if you get 1 whole stick of butter, that's 8 tablespoons. That seems like a lot of butter. It's really not a lot. If you are cooking in butter 2 or 3 times a day, you can use that up pretty easily. If you're dipping in butter some of your bites of food, it's real easy to use that much butter in a day. But if you are getting about a stick of butter a day, you'll get more than the 100% of your RDA of vitamin A. Really. So it's really easy to get nutrients when we consume the appropriate foods in the appropriate amounts. Okay? So think about that when you're choosing your foods and making your menus, making your plans for your day or your week. Sharnese says, is bran for real butter? I have seen sweet cream. Sweet cream is butter. It's pure fat. That's what it is. Ghee is clarified butter that's been cooked down, so it's still sweet cream, it's still butter fat. It doesn't matter what name you attach to it, Charnice. It's all the same. It's just prepared slightly differently, but it's all sweet cream. Okay. Other questions about anything so far? Okay. So, guess what vitamin A is also good for? Anybody want to guess what vitamin A is used for in addition to being in your butter and being good for you as a healthy fat-soluble vitamin? Anybody know what it's helpful for? Charnice, manufacturers confuse us deliberately. If they can confuse you, you're going to buy different products, meaning they make more money. It's all in the dollar sign. That's all it's about. If they can convince you that ghee is different than sweet cream is different than butter, you're going to buy all three products. And guess who's the winner there? Not us. Yep. So anyway, who knows what vitamin A is really, really, really good for other than your eyes? Everybody's supposed to know that. Vitamin A is good for eyes. But what else is vitamin A really important for? It's a cofactor, if that is a clue that might help. Anybody got an idea? Let's see. Well, it is a little bit of a cofactor for D, but it's really minor. It's not a huge big deal there, Charnice. The biggest role that vitamin A plays is in protein absorption. So if you are trying to improve your protein numbers, for instance, on your lab results, if, for instance, I've told you that your proteins are slightly low, or if you've looked at your protein results on your CMP, your complete metabolic panel, and you're like, my protein levels are on the low end of this range. I don't like that. I want to get them a little bit higher. And you're like, then you go and look at your proteins and you're like, gosh, I get lots of protein in my day. How come my numbers are so low? The first thing I always look at is what is your butter content intake in your day? How much butter are you getting? And when people tell me a couple tablespoons, I'm like, that's your problem, more than likely. And so we definitely want to increase your butter intake because of the vitamin A needed for protein absorption. Remember that food contains multiple nutrients that all depend on each other for absorption and utilization. None of these nutrients are in isolation. None of them work in isolation. None of them are absorbed in isolation. Not one single nutrient can do anything alone. If you're taking a vitamin D all by itself, you're pretty much wasting your money. Like nothing that we take in isolation is beneficial. It's not going to work. God put, I'm a Christian, y'all know, I'm a believer, so I believe that God created foods, plants and meats with multiple ingredients for a variety of reasons, but mostly because those foods provide different nutrient needs because different things are beneficial in that food for us. One really good example is red meat. We're talking about butter today. So if you don't consume adequate butter, the protein in your red meat won't be absorbed well. Well, guess what else is in red meat? Most of your heavy metals, your trace minerals we talked about a week or so ago, won't be absorbed well either. And that is all related to iron and protein. So why is it all in your red meat? Because God made it that way, so that we get all the nutrients we need from that same piece of meat. Okay? There's a reason that it's all together. That didn't happen just out of the clear blue. Oh, well, you need this nutrient and this nutrient, so it just happened magically. No, that's not what I believe. It happened on purpose, that the specific nutrients we need came together very specifically to meet very specific nutrient needs for our bodies. So butter, 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 butter is really important for the nutrient absorption, especially for proteins and certain other nutrients, especially in those proteins, like red meat. Okay? So if you're only getting 4 tablespoons of butter a day, that might be an adequate amount of butter for you, so that can be okay, as long as other fats are coming in, like in your cheese, your eggs, your meat. Meat contains some fat just by itself, especially your burger, your fatty meats, your chicken with skin on, your olive oil, avocado oil. All of those other fats are beneficial too. So if you're only getting about half a stick of butter, that can be okay. But a whole stick provides approximately 100-ish grams of fat a day. So that's an average intake of fat for most of us. So you might not need a whole 100 grams, and that's okay, but that'll give you an average to sort of aim for. Some of us can get by with 40 or 50 grams of fat a day, especially if we're trying to lose weight. We may not have to get the whole 100 because we want to burn the fat on our bodies, not just consume all the fat. So that might work for some of us. If we're trying to lose weight, we might want to cut back on our fat intake and try to burn some of the fat. If you're just starting out, cutting carbohydrates, you want to eat more fat than less fat, simply because that'll help you learn hunger and fullness, and you can go longer and longer between meals, and that will help you start losing weight. Once you get to a place, like I've been keto for like 10 years, you can get by with 30 or 40 grams of fat, and it's no big deal. Like, you don't need 100 grams of fat every day. So adjust your fat intake based on where you are in your eating plan, in your dieting kind of journey. Y'all know I don't like the word diet, but I've been keto for 10 years, and I don't call it a diet. It's my lifestyle. So, but wherever you are in that eating journey, you need to choose your fat intake based on what your goals are, how you're living your life, okay? If you are just starting out cutting carbs, you're going to need way more fats to help fill you up, to help you eat less food, that kind of thing. But if you've been keto for months and you're struggling, you've hit a plateau, it's time to cut back on your fat intake. It's time to see where you can tweak things a little bit. Does that kind of help? All right. So 100 grams of fat a day is kind of average for the majority of us. That's approximately a whole stick of butter. So, but all of it doesn't have to be butter. Okay. I got to work on a graphic for that so that I can explain that for people. But a whole stick of butter is approximately 100 grams of fat. And that's kind of average for the majority of people, especially starting out low carbing. All of that does not have to be butter. That's just the approximate fat needs for the day. It can be a little more. It might need to be a little less depending on your particular macro goals. But 100-ish is average. Okay, so if you're using a tracking app, you want to put in somewhere around 100 for your fat goal. Okay. Then you want to put less than 20 for your carbs. And then your protein is based on your height. You can find my chart on my website, joyfulhearthousecalls.com. Or you can message me and I'll help you calculate that. Okay? Questions? Anybody have questions about butter? Butter is good for the gut health. It feeds healthy gut bacteria. It helps your body absorb protein. It helps you stay full longer, so you don't need to eat as often, meaning you're eating fewer meals, you're eating less food, and that's what helps you lose weight. If you think you're eating keto and you're having more than 2 meals a day, you're probably not eating keto. Okay? Eating keto generally means you're eating a pretty high fat meal, decent protein, very, very low carb, and you're going 5 to 6, 8 hours between meals. You can't be eating 3 or 4 meals a day, 3 meals and a couple snacks, and be eating keto, because keto keeps you full for hours and hours and hours at a time. You might be doing that early in your process, but after a week or two, you should not still be eating multiple times a day, because that's not how keto works. Ketogenic eating means you're eating higher fat, higher protein, very, very low carb, so your body is getting plenty of nutrients and does not need to keep eating constantly. If you're eating constantly, you're probably still eating way too many carbohydrates and you're still on that 2-hour carb cycle, okay? Judy says, is there a best brand of butter to buy? I am not the butter police, so you can buy whatever brand of butter you like. We happen to have a local farm brand here that we like to get when it's available. It's in Walmart even. If you are lucky enough to have an Amish butter that's local to you, that is some of the, it is delicious butter. So yeah, whatever you can get that's clean and healthy is great. So get whatever butter you can get. Sometimes we do buy the cheap, inexpensive, off-brand generic stuff. I'm not going to tell you I buy expensive grass-fed all the time. We do buy salted butter. Salted butter is way better for you because it does contain salt. If you're making specific recipes, it may call for an unsalted butter, and I might buy some then, but that's the only time we use unsalted butter. Salt is very good for you. If you have not started adding salt to your water or to your food, to your lifestyle, find my YouTube channel and watch my salt video. Salt, 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 butter, 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 meat, meat, meat. Those are the 3 major basics for eating healthy. I don't know what the brand at Walmart is. Whatever it is. Get whatever brand you like, just get butter. Make sure it's just butter. That's it. I'm not a brand person. I try not to really call out brands of things unless I absolutely have to. It is, Claudia. I don't care what brand you get. I don't get paid for supporting brands, so whatever brand you want. Whatever you get. All right, other questions. Butter's good for you. It's good for your gut, good for your brain, good for your health overall. It feeds healthy gut bacteria. It helps you absorb your protein from your meat. So get your butter. If you are sensitive, go back and watch the very beginning of the video, because I did talk about how to reintroduce butter into your diet if you've eliminated it. But butter is actually probably the most healthy fat you can use. It is not going to clog up your arteries, no matter what your mainstream providers tell you. Your carbohydrates and your inflammation are going to do that for you, not your butter. Okay? So, yeah. So, I told y'all today would be kind of short, but it is really, really important. I've had to reteach lots about butter over the last few weeks to several patients. So I thought this would be a great topic for our discussion today. So share, share, share videos for my page, graphics for my page. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Some of y'all are faithfully sharing some of my stuff, and I truly appreciate that. I know how hard it can be to get through to some of your family and friends when you start talking about diet and nutrition. So many people are just so entrenched in mainstream nutrition advice and medicine, and it's just so hard. It touches such nerves, and I really understand. So thank you for trying to share. Nancy says, can we touch on heavy whipping cream? What is carrageenan? Is a pretty bad preservative. I use it in a few recipes, but as y'all have seen, I hardly ever make very many things with heavy cream in it. So I figure that my occasional use of heavy cream isn't that big a deal. It's one of the reasons I switched to putting butter in my coffee rather than heavy cream in my coffee, so that I wouldn't have it every single day. So that is something to think about. It is a preservative. It is recognized as a carcinogen. It's one of the things that I tell people you have to make a choice about. It's not a great ingredient, but for most people, the amount is small, and it's not really a huge amount that's in there. You know, if you're drinking a quart of heavy cream a day, that could be a problem for more than one reason. But, you know, most people, it's just a little bit of heavy cream in there. So it's generally not a huge problem. But, you know, it is a unhealthy ingredient. But that's one of the reasons I switched from using heavy cream in my coffee to the butter, because there's no carrageenan in butter. We leave our butter out on our counter so it's soft and spreadable. If I want to spread some on my burger, meat, on my veggies or whatever, it's soft and spreadable. We have a little bowl that's covered and it stays soft and spreadable. We keep the majority of our butter in the fridge until we're ready to use it. So that makes it convenient to use if it's spreadable. We melt it when we're going to use it for dipping or something like that. But yeah, that carrageenan and other preservatives are why I stopped using heavy cream in my coffee. I do use it in soups. In the winter, we do make soups with heavy cream and stews and stuff like that. But again, we throw out more heavy cream in the summer than we use, because my husband uses a little bit in his coffee and that's about it. We just don't use much. So, hope that helps. If y'all didn't see the whole, I've seen several people join just in the last 5 or 10 minutes. So if you just joined us, make sure you go back and catch the whole video on replay. We talked at the very beginning about how to figure out if you have a true dairy sensitivity or allergy, or how to add butter back in if you've eliminated it completely. But most people can tolerate dairy, even if they're butter, even if you are sensitive to dairy products otherwise. Milk is usually the absolute worst, but butter is completely different than milk. Milk is mostly sugar, and that is a problem for a lot of people. So, y'all have a great day. This is Jenny Gallagher with Joyful Heart Healthcare. I'll see y'all next week.